Good morning, Ms. Hofmeyer. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Chair. Apologies.
Thank you. Yes, are we ready?
We are indeed, Chair. If I may just deal with one or two procedural aspects before we swear in today's witness, Mr. Mahlangu. Mr. Mahlangu provided us with his statement on the Friday before he was originally scheduled to give evidence, and he was sent, pursuant to our receipt of that, certain further documents. I have engaged with him and his attorneys about those documents. There's one in particular in which he's requested further time to address certain aspects. At that point in time, I indicated that as the legal team, we would have no difficulty with that. And as a consequence, I will not ask him about those aspects of the documents until we have the fuller version from him.
Yes.
It's not necessary for today's proceedings that I do so, but we will look forward to the fuller account in due course. Chair, I've also been alerted to the fact that there are about 3 changes or corrections that Mr. Mahlangu wishes to make in his statement. I am aware that he did then provide a fuller copy with the changes, but I'm going to request that we work off the original version because that is the version we've all been working with until now, but we will make the relevant corrections where they arise in the course of his evidence, if that is satisfactory.
Okay, that's fine.
And Chair, the final thing is there are 3 affidavits of witnesses to which affidavits reference will be made in the course of Mr. Mahlangu's evidence today. They have been sent to the relevant persons implicated by those affidavits, and they have been provided to Mr. Mahlangu in advance of today. Chair, we do so only provisionally, of course. It is simply that they are very small aspects of the evidence that fill a gap somewhere. But if at any point they are disputed or contentious, of course we will approach you again to take steps to then call those witnesses. But just for the purposes of getting Mr. Mahlangu's comment on and reaction to some of them, I propose to deal with them in the course of today.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Then, without further ado, if the witness could be sworn in.
Thank you. Please administer the oath or affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
Daniel Mahlangu.
Do you have any objections to taking the prescribed oath?
Nope.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear that all the evidence that you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you.
Yes, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. If we could just for record purposes enter Mr. Mahlangu's file containing his statement and annexures as Exhibit DD4.
The Liver Arch file containing Mr. Daniel Mahlangu's affidavit will be marked Exhibit DD4.
Mr. Mahlangu, just to orientate you in terms of what's in front of you today at the witness table, you have in the file immediately in front of you your statement as it was provided to the Commission on the 14th of June. You also have a set of files on the chair next to you. Those are the files containing the evidence of previous witnesses, and there will be points in the course of the evidence today where I will ask you to take one of them and find a page in it for the purposes of the evidence. And then there are also a soft file in front of you, which will become relevant later. Chair, just to explain the soft file, because I also have a copy that I would like to hand up to you. What happened with the BNP bid that went in for the transaction advisor services tender was that it was partly located in Ms. Stimple's annexures and then partly located in Ms. Nancy's annexures. What I have endeavored to do to ease today's proceedings is put them together in a single place so that we don't have to keep moving between those two files at the relevant point. And so I beg leave, if I may, just to hand up that version of yours. You will see, Chair, that it actually contains the pagination from Ms. Nancy's and Ms. Stimple's bundles, but they've been consolidated in one place just to ease the evidence.
No, that's
so if
fine.
I may beg leave to hand that up, and then that is the other document in front of you. Mr. Mahlangu, it's not anything you haven't seen, it's just pulling those various parts together in one place.
This need not go into record because
No,
it's already
it is there.
Yeah, it's just for convenience.
It's for convenience for today,
Okay.
indeed. Thank you,
Thank you.
Chair. Mr. Mahlangu, I'd then like to take you to your statement, if we may. That is in Exhibit DD4. And you'll find it commencing on page 1. And as I have it, it runs all the way to page 54. If you could turn up page 54 in Exhibit DD4. Mr. Mahlangu, can you confirm that that is your signature on page 54?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And
I think maybe you can bring the mic a little closer to you. Just a little closer. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
And can I take it that now being under oath, you confirm that the statement you provided is true and correct, barring the 3 corrections that I know you want to make to it and will deal with in the course of the evidence?
Through you, Chair, yes, it is. It is
Thank
true.
you.
That it is my
Thank
statement.
you. And could I just ask one other point of clarification, just in terms of the way your statement is structured? As I have it, you begin with the background section, you then detail really the interactions between BNP and SAA, and then towards the end of the statement, you actually deal with a series of questions that were put to you at a prior meeting with the Commission's investigators and legal team. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, yes, it is.
Thank you. And can I confirm that the answers that you give to those questions towards the end of the statement are your answers to those questions?
Yes, through you, Chair, yes.
Thank you.
Indeed, them are
Can I
answers.
just be clear as to why I ask? On occasion in those answers, you refer to yourself in the third person. And so, whereas previously you say I, later you say Mr. Mahlangu. So I just needed to be clear that whatever we see in this statement is in fact your account of the facts. Is that right?
Yes, through you, Chair, yes, it is.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mahlangu, also before I get into the detail, there were just 2 parts in your statement where you indicated that certain documents had been indicated would be made available to you after that meeting with the Commission. The 2 sets that you refer to were correspondence from the FSB to the Commission and also correspondence relating to GRISAG investors' meetings. I can tell you where you take those up if you'd like to go to it, but the upshot of my question is you indicate in the statement that they weren't provided. I will take you to where they were in the documents that were provided to you if you persist with the concern that they weren't provided to you prior to your statement being produced. Or can I take it that you're satisfied that those 2 sets of documents were provided to you?
Through you, Chair, I guess what we can do is, as we progress and aspects of the questions that relates to them, we can actually,
Deal with it, certainly.
Yes.
I'm happy to do that, and I can show you then where they were in the documents that were sent to you.
yes.
Thank you so much. Ms. Mahlangu, then I'd like to start, if we may, at page 2 of your statement, because there you detail for us your role in BNP Capital and some of your background. Could you please take us through that?
Through you, Chair. Basically the CEO of BNP Capital, which is the company formed in 2010. And basically, I think as I indicated in this particular statement, that in 2017, we actually changed the policy for rebranding. But for purposes of this discussion, we're going to actually name it BNP Capital for consistency. As I've actually indicated in my statement that I'm basically responsible, in charge of actually running all the activities of BNP Capital. That is being a director and involved with the day-to-day running of the business. Must I actually proceed? Because
Well, let me, if I may, ask one or two follow-up questions.
Yes.
I understand at page 2 from paragraph 1.2, you're the sole director of BNP Capital. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
And at paragraph 1.3, you talk about your responsibilities, and amongst them, I have it there that you indicate that it's your duty to run the company and ensure that it complies with all relevant laws and corporate governance requirements. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, definitely.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Mahlangu, in terms of your own qualifications and experience, you'll find those beginning over the page at page 3. Can you please take us through what those are?
I've got a Bachelor of Business Science, which is at Wits University, and honors in mathematics, which was done at Wits University, and advanced diploma in company law.
Thank you. And then if we can progress down that page, page 3, at paragraph 2.2, you describe the nature of BNP Capital's business. What is that?
It's through you, Chair. It's actually an independent advisory and investment company, which is 100% black-owned and managed. And the company offers basic advisory services which are built on foundation of efficiency and effective delivery of investment solutions, services and solutions.
Thank you. And then if we go over the page to page 4, you detail some of your experience and the experience of BNP Capital under paragraph 2.5. Do you see that?
Yes, yes, through Chair, I do.
And as I understand that paragraph, at paragraph 2.5.1, you're detailing individual experience. Is that your experience, Mr. Mahlangu?
Through you, Chair, yes, it makes
I'll come back to what it is in a moment, if I may. But then under paragraph 2.5.2, you detail BNP Capital's experience as distinct from your own. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, yes, it is correct.
Thank you. And in terms of individual experience, what I'd like to focus on, Mr. Mahlangu, is what experience you and BNP Capital had in 2016. Because 2016, February, March, is when the bid for the transaction advisory services was submitted. So what I just want to be clear about in this paragraph is which is experience you had or BNP Capital had at the time, and which is experience that may have been obtained since then. So if you could assist us with that.
Okay, through you, Chair. I think, okay, what's happening is on this particular page, what I've detailed, it's only my experience, but not the experience of the company. I'll show it up, you can hear me.
That is on page 4.
Yes, on page 4.
Okay. Well, Ms. Hofmeyr, I don't know if you are still going to come to this, but at page 3,
Yes.
I think it will be important for him to give that the length of experience that
Indeed.
he gives there, but obviously the point you make about 2016
Yes.
is important.
Indeed.
So,
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I'll come to it at the end because it is something of a conclusory aspect in 2.3.
yeah, that's fine, yeah.
But let's go through, if we can focus for now, Mr. Mahlangu, at 2.5. I understand your evidence to be what you actually set out there is your own experience, not BNP Capital's experience. Is that right?
Yes, that's true.
So where it says at paragraph 2.5.2, BNP Capital experience, must we take that actually to be your individual experience?
Okay. 2.5 is actually, through you, Chair, it's done in two ways. The first part, which is 2.5.1, that's individual experience. And when you go down to 2.5.2, that's a company experience.
Thank you. Let's focus then first at individual experience. Of that experience that you list there, please tell us what you had by 2016.
I think I agree with the chair for obvious reasons when he actually mentioned page 3, because what basically 2.5 has done is a summary of the experience that didn't actually list everything that pertains to my experience. It's just a summary of few transactions that I think were key as far as this commission is concerned. However, if you may indulge me to actually just...
You want to start at 3?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine, yeah, start
Yeah.
at 3.
As far as 2.3, sorry, as far as 2.3 is concerned, there's an...
If you feel that's too close, you can move it a little bit.
Yes,
I may
yeah.
have asked you to bring it too close, so just, yeah, okay.
There's a correction that I want to make, where it's written 2.3, I have a decade's experience, which is actually, it's not true. I have more than close to 2 decades of experience in the investment space.
Where it says, I have more than a decade's experience, you
yes,
say it should say more than 2
close,
decades.
close to 2 decades.
Close to 2
yes,
decades.
decades of experience.
Okay.
Basically, I think I've touched as far as my qualifications are concerned, which is, it's merely a Bachelor of Economic Science and honors in mathematics and also company law. As I've indicated before, that BNP Capital was actually, it's an independent advisory firm which was started in 2010. In essence, it was started by 3 individuals. We all actually came from different financial institutions, which was senior guys who were actually working at Deloitte, which is Bonani Matebula, the guy which we're actually going to talk about. And the other guy was Tuso Sencho, which was actually came from Kagiso Investments. So when we started that company, our main objective of that particular company was to actually form a private equity fund, because based on my experience, I will actually go through it here. Given that I've been actually in the private equity space for a while, and as 2.5 indicate, I've been engaged with different financial institutions myself, and basically I've been involved with huge blue chips companies as far as transaction is concerned, and basically done so many private equity transactions. And as far as, just to give a summary of the experience as far as 2.3, as I've indicated, we, as an individual or as actually a company, because as far as the statement is concerned, it was basically saying, you, Mr. Mahlangu, not a company. So now I had to actually be careful as to how I carve it out.
Yes, I guess that some of the experience that you have, you acquired before BNP was formed.
Definitely.
But when BNP was formed, and you being the sole director, that experience benefited the company.
I agree
Your
with
personal experience would benefit the company.
Yes, I agree with you, Chair.
Yes, the company might not have been involved in all the things that you have been involved, but the company does benefit from the fact that its sole director is somebody with that kind of experience.
Definitely, Chair. I agree with you, Chair. But just to add on that, Chair, as I said that there were actually 3 gentlemen that were involved. And
Oh, okay.
yes, and then those gentlemen were actually very senior guys. As I said, that they were actually senior in, one of the...
At the time when BNP was formed.
Definitely. So,
Or you are the sole director now, but you have not always been the sole director.
okay, let me just give a background as far as that aspect is concerned. When the BNP Capital, when BNP was formed...
Which was in 2010?
2010.
Yeah.
So the idea was to actually incorporate other members, to actually make them directors. But it couldn't happen in that particular fashion for obvious reasons, that as time progressed, some guys, realized, actually identified certain aspects within the business to say they actually want to run with certain, part of the business on their own because they've actually identified a niche for themselves. And some of them actually, one of them actually left, but one person, a senior guy that remained, actually carved out of the business and actually formed his own. And then he said, this is where you want to actually focus. So, however, when we started at the beginning, it was experience which basically was brought by 3 individuals, not one individual.
But did the other 2 ever become part of BNP formally?
Yes, no, they were.
Yeah, so when BNP was formed, they were directors.
Not necessarily directors.
Not directors?
Yes.
Or what positions did they occupy?
They were quite senior in a sense
They
that...
were senior officials of the company?
Definitely.
Okay, well, were you the only director even at that time?
Yes, I think the mere fact is we just took things lightly then.
Yes.
Because all of us came from different institutions.
Yes.
So
yes.
we're busy trying to find our footing as far as this business, space is concerned.
Okay.
So while as time progressed, it's only then that we realized that, we actually haven't formally actually engaged ourselves. What's the plan going forward? And one individual, which is Tuso, actually left for obvious.
And when did they leave? Because we just want to see when you became alone and when they left.
Tuso left.
We don't need the actual date, just roundabout an estimate of months.
I think one started running this business as a sole director, so to speak, in 2000 because 2016, one of the guys was still there.
Was still there?
Yes.
Okay. The other one had left.
The other one had left.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So by 2016, there were only 2 of the 3 who were still with BNP.
Definitely.
Okay. And when did the other one leave?
Formally.
The one who was still there in 2016.
Formally, sometime in 2016. Yes.
That's fine. So you became, but throughout this period, you were the director. You were
yes,
they had positions, but you were the director.
Definitely, but at the same time, we're all running management, so we're all yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mahlangu, if I may just clarify 1 or 2 things. When did you obtain your advanced diploma in company law?
While I was at PIC, which is it was.
Some years before 2016?
Yes, ages ago, before that.
Right. So you understand the position of a director in a company, correct?
Definitely.
So it was only you who was the sole director of BNP Capital at any point prior to 2016?
Definitely.
The people that you refer to, I'd like to get their names on the record, please. I understand one of them was Mr. Vonani Matebula. Is that correct?
That's true.
And tell us, was he an employee of the company then?
I think as the fact stands now, yes, he was an employee.
Can you help us with that? What does it mean to say as the facts stand now?
Yes, I mean, I think through you, Chair, you just mentioned something very critical as far as company law is concerned. Given that he was not a director, the only thing that he can be is an employee. Yes.
Was he remunerated by the company?
Yes.
Thank you. And then you mentioned a 3rd person. Who was that?
I'm sorry. I get the impression that the status of those 2 might not have been very clear at the time. You seem to hesitate to define them or describe them in any particular fashion, maybe because the 3 of you had discussed forming this entity and so on. Is my impression correct? That their status might not have been as clear as all that in terms of what they were formally.
Not true, Chair.
Yes.
I think when things started,
You might not have bothered about titles and job titles.
Yes, because when we started, when we started, we actually wanted to go with an entity that has already been registered. And when you actually go to CIPC, and that particular individual that provided their details becomes a director. So when we actually formed this company, then the idea was to let's grow this company together. Yes. So we're clear at the beginning as far as what is it that we wanted to do. But as time progressed, you know, and when people realized that, because you know, to actually form a black advisory firm, especially in the financial services space, it's a very tough call, given that opportunities were far in between. So it was very tough. People actually were, I mean, these guys were qualified CAs, both of them. So they were used to actually getting a salary, and suddenly, you know, their lives were actually at risk. So there was actually that thinking when we were actually doing this in their minds. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
yes, hence at the beginning things were not that straightforward, clear as to whether we're going to continue with this thing. Because I remember when we started to actually operating at the restaurant, yes, it was very difficult.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mahlangu.
Yes, sorry. Sorry, through you, Chair. I think I was still going through this. Yes,
Yes,
Mahlangu,
okay.
if we
She
can
might
just-
wish to help you with that.
Indeed. Just because we mentioned 3 people, and I'd like to get the third person's name clear. Who was the third person who joined you?
It's Tuso Sencho.
Could you spell that for us?
The Sencho or the Tuso?
Both, please, just for the record.
Yeah.
It's THUSO,
Thank you. And the surname?
SENCHO. It's SENCHO, Sencho.
Sencho.
Thank you. And was he in BNP Capital at the time that you bid for the transaction advisory services tender?
No, Tuso wasn't.
And just finally on this point, I know you do want to return. In terms of fiduciary responsibilities to the company, only you had those, is that correct, as its sole director?
As far as, obviously, the responsibilities as far as the company law is concerned, I was, but we're sharing them together with Mr. Matabul.
But he was not a formally appointed director?
Yes.
Thank you. If you'd like to return to paragraph 2.3 on page 3, you were taking us through that.
On 2.3, in essence, what through you, Chair, what I'm basically saying there is I've worked with prominent, South African companies, especially in the financial services space. I've been involved in private equity, project finance, corporate finance, and project management and analysis. And I've got my experience ranges across road, transport, mining, health, energy, and other related services. And at the below is, if I can just zoom in there, or rather maybe just discuss the point below is, I started at NEF as a project manager, as a senior project manager, and then I moved to PIC as also a project manager there. And on page 4, it basically detailed some of the experiences that one actually has done.
If you want, you can read there, whatever you want to highlight there, because it's nothing controversial.
Okay.
If you want to refresh your memory, but if you can just run through it without doing that, it's fine. I just want you to know that you can read this part of your evidence.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, so I will jump to 2.5 now. Yes. In 2.5, has actually been indicated that one has been involved in financial advice and capital raising project for both public and private sector. Also for individual, and also get involved in partnerships with other entities. For instance, as I've indicated below here, that we've basically as an individual, one has worked with so many projects, especially at the Public Investment Corporation. If I can,
I'm sorry, Mr. Mahlangu. I think I have an understanding of why you say one and not I. You remember, Ms. Hofmeyer was saying in part of your statement, you speak in the third person and you say, Mr. Mahlangu this, Mr. Mahlangu that.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm saying I think
Okay.
I understand. I may be wrong, but I know that, I know when people put it that way, they don't want to say I, because it's like you are saying, this is how good you are, this is all the experience you have.
Okay, I understand you,
My
Chair.
own impression is when people do that, it's normally because they don't want to be seen to be trying to highlight how good they are and so on, but I may be mistaken. So I'm just saying, I know that you say one.
Oh, okay. No, I understand, Chair.
But I understand, yes.
Yes, I'll try and be
Continue.
consistent.
Yeah, but when you say one, you mean yourself.
Yes, I'll try and say I. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. At PIC, I was a head of funds, meaning I was responsible for all the private equity firms that are, that you see, that are actually out there. I was sitting on the advisory boards, so I would actually go and attend the meetings, give us feedback. If there's any documentation that needs to be done, they would send to me, and basically I'll run with that as far as drawdowns are concerned, as far as investment that they need to be disposed, or whatever, issues or management issues that are actually going on in that particular firm, then I would actually run with that. I just highlighted few of the transactions
Yes.
that I got involved in. I think for the sake of this particular exercise, I was also involved in unwinding of 24 billion MTN scheme, which basically we run along together with Nedbank and RMB, were the actually main sponsor and an advisor to the MTN. And also a refinancing of Ralba Fukeng. One was actually also involved. I was also a board director of that. I sat as a director representing on behalf of the PIC on that particular transaction. But over and above that, I've been involved in so many of these transactions, meaning in the corporate finance transactions on the PIC side, in the project finance transactions, I was actually also involved. In the private equity transactions, I mean, some of them are huge transactions I can mention, but I think for the sake of time, I'll just highlight these.
Yes.
And I will jump to the BNP Capital experience. And the first one is we actually raised the fund, which is up and running as we speak. It's a health fund, which we assisted to raise 1.7 billion. I'll just highlight a few.
Mr. Mahlangu, I do apologize. It's just fairly important for us to understand whether this experience was obtained prior to or after your bid for transaction advisor services in March of 2016. So could we go through each of them? The one you've just referenced at paragraph 2.5.2.1, raising capital for a health fund of approximately 1.7 billion. When did BNP Capital acquire that experience? You can just indicate before or after.
There was, I need to come back to it, but as far as the dates are concerned.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Because, yes, but I will highlight the ones that I remember vividly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
As far as the National Treasury 16 billion transactions that we've raised together with Citibank, yes, that was before.
Before, thank
Yes.
you.
As far as the total transaction, the BE transactions that we've done as a business, that was actually running concurrently. Because you can appreciate that this transaction was actually in 4 jurisdictions. So we had to actually get approvals, especially competition approval, in 4 jurisdictions. So it actually took entire to actually complete this one.
You said concurrently.
Yes.
Do you mean
While
it started before 2016 and went into 2016 and beyond, or you mean it happened in 2016?
in 2016,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
So had it commenced before March of 2016?
March of 2016, because I remember. I remember when we were busy with the SAA advisory work. This transaction we're busy with as well.
Thank you.
Yes, so now I need to,
Yes. Would you say it's unlikely to have been completed by March 2016 if it started in 2016?
no, yes, it's unlikely. It was,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
completed in December.
Yes. If it started before March, only a small portion of it would have been done.
Definitely.
Most part would have happened after.
Yes, I remember it was actually done in December.
Of
Or in
2016.
December 2016.
Yes, it was
Thank
completed in
When you say done, is that when it was finished? Or when it was
financial
started?
close, money exchanged hands.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you.
We're also involved, as part of our business, we actually get involved with, as I've indicated before, it's either with law firms, with huge law firms on a particular transaction, with engineering firms. We've done such a beautiful work, especially for water treatment plants with a huge engineering firm. With audit firms, I think we've been actually working together, on a larger scale with audit firms. We've been partnering with them on many of the projects, we implemented them together. And
Just remember that Ms. Hofmeyer wants you to
Yes.
always say whether it's before or after March 2016 when you mention experience. Where you remember and where you need to come back to us, you can mention.
yes, especially this was actually before that.
Okay.
Yes,
Which
yes.
one are we referring to now, Mr. Mahlangu?
The academic hospital.
So you've jumped down to paragraph 2.5.2.5,
Oh,
is
the
that
Ascendis,
correct?
sorry. The Ascendis one was also in 2016. It was running concurrently, together with the total transaction. The 2.5.25 was also a feasibility study, which was actually done prior to 2016.
Mr. Mahlangu, if I may just stop you there, because that's your list of particular BNP Capital experience. What I'm interested in is that most of these, as I understand your evidence, are occurring concurrently with the work on the transaction advisory services for SAA, or have been completed before. Is that correct?
Some concurrently, but some is, I think, what I don't want to do is actually to mislead this commission as far as the
Yes.
dates are concerned.
Yes.
And I just need to map up the dates as to when, so that,
No, that's fine.
Yes.
I haven't followed as closely as I should have. Maybe what we should do, Ms. Hofmeyer, is we should actually go experience by one, and you say before, you say after, before, after. Where you can't remember, you say, I'll come back to you on that.
definitely,
Okay,
yes. I
but
think-
where you can remember, you tell us before or after, or during 2016, because I understand some are during 2016. Okay,
Chair,
I
I'm
think let's do
indebted.
that.
I'm indebted for that, and maybe I should jump ahead.
Okay.
So that we understand why this is of some importance.
Yes,
Ms. Mahlangu, when you bid for the transaction advisory services tender at SAA, I have not seen in that bid any of this experience referred to. And that is why it is of some importance for the Commission to understand whether you had the experience before and it wasn't referenced in the bid, in which case we'll explore that further, or whether this is experience you couldn't have referenced in the bid because you acquired it only after March of 2016. So in fairness to you, that's where the question comes from.
Okay,
So
I
let's,
understand.
with that in mind, look at each of them. Let's go back to page 4, if we may. We start at the bottom. You detail at paragraph 2.5.2.1 BNP Capital's experience in raising capital for a health fund of approximately 1.7 billion. Did you have that before March 2016?
Through you, Chair, as I've indicated, I just need to actually check the
You
dates.
check and come back.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll make a
okay.
note, thank you.
Yes, or maybe what I can do is I would actually verify it, is maybe during the break.
No, that's
Yeah,
fine.
so
yeah.
that
Yes.
we don't delay.
Indeed.
I think probably you will spend the whole day with us, so during the tea break or during the
Yes.
lunch break, you can check if you are able to.
Chair, I've got no difficulty with that, and maybe we
Yes.
leave this paragraph then so we can get clarity after the break from Mr.
Yes,
Mahlangu.
no, that's fine.
Just to be
So-
clear what we're interested
Yes,
in,
yeah.
it's paragraph 2.5.2. Each of the 5 bits of experience that are listed there as BNP Capital experience. If you'll assist us after the break to tell us which of that experience BNP Capital had prior to March of 2016, we will be indebted.
So in other words, we leave this part of the experience for now.
For now.
So that you are able during the break to check whatever information you need, and then so that when we come back to it, you have the information.
Yes, I agree
We'll
with
deal
you,
with
Chair.
it later, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then at that page, still page 5, at paragraph 2.5.3, as I have it, you reference various partnerings with commercial banks on various projects. Chair, with your leave, I'm going to suggest the same approach be taken there, that we just enable Mr. Mahlangu to get clarity over the break as to which
Yes.
experience was before or after.
That's fine, yeah.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Mahlangu, I'd like to take you, if I may, before we get into more of the detail of the engagements with SAA, to the actual bid that BNP Capital submitted for the transaction advisor services. You would have heard from my introduction this morning, I've attempted to collate the various parts of that bid into one document, and you'll find it in the soft file in front of you. And Chair, as we indicated earlier, no need to enter this in the record. It's just going to be for our convenience. And just to orientate everyone, Chair, the pagination, and Mr. Mahlangu, the pagination in the top right-hand corner of each page is either going to reference a page preceded by PN, which is a reference to Ms. Nancy's bundle, which is exhibit DD2, or it's going to reference CASS, which is a reference to a paginated page of Ms. Stimple's bundle, which is DD1. But because we alternate between them in this document, I'm actually going to ask, if I may, that both of you look at the bottom of the page, because what is useful there is you get on the bottom right-hand side page 1 of 55, or
Okay.
page 2 of 55. That referencing is how I've been able to compile this from the two sources. And so the reference I'll use for now, I'll always give the paginated reference, Chair, for the record. But in order for us to navigate, I'll ask you to go, for example, to page 15 of 55, and then we will find it fairly easily.
Okay.
Oh, I thought if you simply said something like CAS 373.
It's not as easy, Chair, because it doesn't run sequentially
Oh,
in
is that
CAS.
so? Okay.
So I endeavored to do it this morning myself, and I
Yes.
realized the easier reference is at the bottom,
Yes.
but I will always give, for record purposes,
Yes.
what the paginated
the
page
top.
reference is,
Okay.
just so that we can find it a bit more easily.
Okay.
Mr. Mahlangu, as I have it, there are various parts of the bid that BNP Capital put together that you signed. And I'd like to take you to those parts that you appended what I take to be your signature to. The first one you'll find at page 20 of 55 in that pack in front of you. So if you go to page 20 of 55, its reference for the record is CASS 391. Do you see that, Mr. Mahlangu?
Yes, I do. Through you, Chair.
And can you confirm that that is your signature on that page?
Yes, it is.
So this is a declaration, if you go back the page previous, which is in fact for the paginated record to be found at PN 212, but on the internal referencing, it's page 19 of 55. That is a declaration of interest. We'll look at it in due course. But for present purposes, I just wanted to confirm you have signed that declaration of interest on behalf of BNP Capital. Is that correct?
That's true.
Thank you. The next one I'd like to take you to is page 27 of 55. And for the purposes of the record, that appears in PN 216, which is a reference to Ms. Nancy's bundle DD2. Again, I see a signature there, Mr. Mahlangu. Is that your signature?
Yes, it is.
As I have it, you're confirming the bank details of BNP Capital there. Have I understood that?
I'm sorry, I think there are two signatures on that page.
Ah, indeed.
There is one, well, actually there are three.
Yes.
There is the first one immediately after, soon after the first date stamp there, and then there is one in the middle, there is one at the bottom.
Indeed, Chair, I should have been much more precise. If we can go through them, Mr. Mahlangu, do you see the one under the stamp of the bank, which says signature bank official? Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Is
Through the
that
chair.
your signature?
Yes, it's my signature.
Well, let's go above, if we may. Do you see the stamp in the middle of the page, referencing for Merchant Place?
Yes, I do.
Do you see below there, there's a line that says initials and surname bank official? Do you see that?
Yes, I do. Through the
And
chair.
what is referenced there? What appears on that line?
The name that is written there.
You mean for the bank official?
Yes.
It's PM Hlalele.
Right? And below that, there appears to be a space for a signature of a bank official. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Is the signature that appears on that line your signature?
As far as the bank,
Yes.
no.
Thank you. We're just trying to get clarity.
Initially, you said yes.
Yes, so,
That's why she's going back to try and help you, because she realizes you didn't understand.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you and I, Mr. Mahlangu, went straight for your signature on the page, but
Yes.
the chair has pointed out, with respect entirely correctly, that there are 3 signatures on this page. So we're just trying to get, for clarity's purposes,
Okay.
which is yours and which are the signatures of others.
Okay.
So as I have your evidence, under the line signature of bank official, that is not your signature, correct?
Correct.
Then slightly below that, under the line that says telephone number bank official, there is then an entry that says signature, and then there's a space, and then what is recorded is duly authorized to sign on behalf of, and if you carry on the next line, BNP Capital. The signature that appears on that signature line, is that your signature?
Yes, it's mine, through the chair.
Thank you. And then at the bottom of the page, under a capitals heading reading Commissioner of Oaths, there is then the 3rd signature on that page. Is that your signature?
No, Chair, I'm not a commissioner of oath.
Thank you. So as I understand this page, and correct me if I'm wrong, where you sign at the place that you've identified as being your signature, you were doing so as the duly authorized representative of BNP Capital to confirm its banking details, which appear higher on that page. Have I understood that page correctly?
Yes, through the chair.
Thank you. And then if we go to page 51 of this pack, that page, for the record, will be found in Exhibit DD2, Ms. Nancy's bundle, at page 227. I think I'm correct in saying there's only one signature on this page. Can you identify, Mr. Mahlangu, whether that is your signature?
Yes, it is, through the chair.
I think Mr. Mahlangu agrees with you.
Yes, I think we're on the same page at this point. Mr. Mahlangu, if you just go back one page to page 50 of 55, which for the record will be found in DD1, Exhibit DD1, which is Ms. Stimple's bundle at page 421, you'll see that that is a declaration of what's called independent bid adjudication. And as I have it, that is what you sign at page 51 of 55 on the internal numbering. Can you confirm that?
Yes, that's true.
Thank you. And Mr. Mahlangu, before we go into the actual details about how the whole idea of BNP Capital bidding for these services at SAA arose, just like to clarify, BNP Capital's triple BEE status in March of 2016. A what level contributor was it?
3,
Level 3.
yes.
Thank you. I'd then like to look in some detail, Mr. Mahlangu, at the relationship that developed between BNP Capital on the one hand and Mr. Mngadi and inline trading on the other hand.
Okay.
And for that purpose, I'd like to take us, if I may, to page 11 of your affidavit. Apologies, your statement, which has now been confirmed under oath.
Through you, Chair.
Yes.
On sometime in February in 2016, a gentleman by the name of Rampa Ramupu gave me a call, and then he said a friend of his wanted to actually my details for us to actually sit down and explore and doing business together. And then he asked me whether can he actually give this gentleman my email address. And then I agreed to say, you can, because I trusted him, because we've been working with him for some time, because I've actually, even while I was at PIC, funded some of their transactions. So on the 9th of Feb, I then received an email. And that email says,
I'm sorry, you said on the 9th of February?
yes.
Okay, but the guy who had called you...
At the beginning of Feb.
beginning, okay,
yes.
all right.
On the 9th of February, I then got a call, got an email actually, not even a call, because it didn't have my contact details. So that email is actually, it reads under 5.2. And then just to summarize it, says, Rampa Ramupo, a mutual friend referred me to you. I would like us to work together jointly by submitting a response to the TA RFI, which came to market this past Sunday to perform this role for SAA. Timings of essence, this RFI closes next Tuesday, which was the 16th of September.
Apologies.
Of February.
I mean, of February, sorry.
Yes.
Yes. And I think what then transpired then, without actually going word for word, what then transpired, then Mr. Mngadi sent us an email together with his detail. I mean, with basically introducing
when you say
himself.
Sent us, you mean sent you?
Oh, send me an email.
BNP, yeah.
Yes, BNP an email,
Yeah.
and basically introducing himself, and at the same time forwarded an RFI, which basically he got from, if you can actually go to, I'm not sure how the appendix is actually done here, especially the annexures.
Ms.
Okay,
Mahlangu,
Ms. Hofmeyer will
I can
help you.
assist you.
Yes.
That's part of my role today.
Yes.
If you'd like to go to the first email,
Yes.
which is at PDM1, it's under tab 1, and you'll find it at page 55. 55. If you follow under tab 1, you should find it immediately.
Yeah, page 55 has been,
It's been written over. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
if you go to the next page, you see the next page is very
Yes.
clearly 56.
yes, no.
But the tabs are also useful, Mr. Mahlangu, just to orientate us.
Yes, I'm actually on there, it's PDM 056.
Yes.
Yes. And in essence, through you, Chair, what I was trying to actually highlight was how we actually summarize this email that is sent to us.
Yes.
Yes. And basically, in the same email, they actually attached even the RFI that they actually,
Yes.
that we're supposed to work on. And if you actually, what's interesting about this?
Was it an RFI or already an RFP?
An RFI.
It was still an RFI, okay.
Yes. What basically is interesting, if you actually flip over to page 3, you could even tell that Mr. Mngadi himself actually purchased this RFI. At the bottom it says, "Good day, Salas. Kindly email me the RFP
I'm
plus.
sorry. You might be too fast. The first email you wanted to draw my attention to at page 55, is it the top one on the page or bottom one?
Okay.
The one you have already talked about?
Yes, it's PDM 056.
Or you are on the next page? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's a first one. The first one is the.
Is that the ones greeting you as hater den?
Yes.
Okay, yes, that's
Run
from
by
Mr.
mutual friend referred me to you. And then it goes on. I would like us to actually work together jointly by submitting a response to the transition advisor, which came to market this past Sunday, to perform this role for SAA. The timings of essence. This RFI closes next Tuesday, which is 16th of Feb. And understand that you are currently in George. Okay, that's
Yeah.
below that is there's attached undercover here for please find the transaction advisor RFI for your perusal. When you are back in Sentin tomorrow morning, kindly can we meet to discuss this opportunity?
Okay, I can see that, yes.
Yes, and then I think on the same page at the top, that was my response. I'd like to acknowledge a receipt of your email. I'm keen for us to submit a joint bid on this assignment. Unfortunately, I'll be available on Thursday morning. In the meantime, we'll start working on the proposal.
Yes.
Yes.
And then, Mr. Mahlangu, if we go back to your statement at page 11, I understand that you did then meet with Mr. Mngadi, is that correct?
Definitely we did.
I'd like to ask some specific questions about that meeting. When did it occur?
On Thursday, as I've mentioned in this, now on that, I have to go back to that, because that's when I referred to him that I'll be available on that particular day, which was Thursday.
Right, so it's the Thursday after the 9th of February email, is that correct?
That's correct.
And where did you meet?
At what's the name of that place? Let me remember. Felons, at the Felons Hotel.
Fellows Hotel.
Yes,
And
Felons.
where is that? Sorry, Fairlands. Did you
Yes,
say?
Felons.
Okay. Where is that?
Where's Felons? I'll have to, I know where it is, but
Yeah.
the area,
Oh, the
I'm not sure
area.
what it's called.
You would have to check. Okay.
Yes, you just have to, it's a
Yes.
Felons Boutique Hotel.
Okay.
You can give us that after the break, if that's useful. And who was at that meeting?
It was me and him,
Just the two of you?
yes.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Mahlangu, in paragraph 5.4 on page 11 of your statement, you detail what Mr. Mngadi told you at that meeting. Can
Yes.
you take us through that?
When we actually met with Mr. Mngadi, he then actually mentioned an opportunity that was available at SAA. Mind you, when actually, before we could even meet through you, Chair, he already forwarded an RFI, which I have actually asked the guys at the office to look at it and work and see what is that is required on that RFI so that we can try and comply as much as we can. And basically, he gave us a sort of an overview of the opportunity and his experience as far as the client is concerned, which is SAA. So basically narrated, a story to the effect that he's well versed with the issues that SAA is facing, and even some of the issues that we understand currently, that basically SAA is in the clutches of the big banks that are slowly squeezing it out, as far as the terms of the funding that is actually at SAA through those banks, and he actually he came up with a solution to actually come to try and assist the SAA to breed firstly, because some of the banks are actually driving it to a point of insolvency, as we currently know the status of SAA as we speak now. And also he narrated his actually understanding of the aviation space, and basically gave us sort of, deep understanding of some of the issues, what needs to be done, and how those things needs to be done. And based on our discussion there, he then mentioned, a company.
Mr. Mahlangu, if you don't mind, just before you get to the company,
Yes.
I have a few follow-up questions in relation to what you've said.
Yeah.
Did you inquire from Mr. Mngadi how he had acquired that wealth of experience?
Not necessarily. I didn't, actually. I think in our space, if I meet, I think it's business as usual with entrepreneurs. If I meet someone who says to me, he's actually a miner, and then and the basis of that, and that miner was actually referred by another miner to me, who I actually trust and I've worked with on so many mining transactions. If they come and actually present a story to me, I actually believe it on the basis of who will refer that person to me.
Understood. I'm not suggesting at that point that you weren't to believe it. I'm asking what information you had at the time of that meeting. Because as I understand your statement, you said he informed you, this is at paragraph 5.4, of his long-standing client-consultant relationship with SAA.
Yes.
So what I would just like to understand, did you probe that any further? Did you probe what transactions he'd been involved in with SAA, in what capacity, how he'd come to acquire all of this knowledge?
And like, what do you do for a living? What do you do? That kind of thing. I think
Yes.
that's, yeah.
Through you, Chair. It's unfortunate because in our space, we meet so many people, and it depends on how that individual, how you meet that particular individual. For instance, if I meet someone on the street and then they start telling me about things that they are good at and opportunities that they've got, and they want my participation or business participation, I would definitely probe further, because I've never seen this, no one has referred me to this particular individual. But in our investment and advisory space, it's a question of referral. If someone, we get referrals on a daily basis, and I would meet people, big clients, that I'll sit in front of them because someone has referred me to them. They wouldn't ask me, what is it that I've done? They would just say, we've got an opportunity here, please come up with a solution, let's move forward. So it's not the nature of our business where we actually question. If, for instance, I just met him on the street, definitely I would have asked that particular question.
Yes, no, but you assumed that Ms. Hofmeyer wants to criticize you. All she wanted is whether, by any chance, you might have asked certain questions to Mr. Mngadi, but you say this particular type of question you did not ask, and you have explained why you did not ask.
Yes, just to add there through you, Chair. I think what I'm trying to highlight was when Mr. Mngadi was referred to us, he was referred by a very reliable friend and a partner, and a guy who's got massive experience in the deal-making space.
No, I understand
Yes.
that. I understand that you have told us that because of the person who referred Mr. Mngadi to you,
Yes.
you regarded Mr. Mngadi as somebody that you could deal with, and you were not going to necessarily ask certain questions, at least at that time.
Yes, I guess at that, you're right here. I think at that point in time, he, when we actually sat down, he just gave a whole overview of the issues, and some of the issues which basically were well documented in the news, news articles, which we all knew about, with the issues.
Yes, no. I just want to understand that, at least at this stage, Ms. Hofmeyer is not necessarily seeking to criticize you for not asking.
Okay.
I'm trying to make sure that we make progress.
Okay.
She was just asking, did you ask him such and such a question?
No, I didn't.
And if you didn't, you say, no, I didn't.
Okay, I
If
didn't.
she takes it further, you can then justify yourself if it's necessary. But
Okay.
if not, you just answer the question.
Thanks for guidance, Chair.
Okay,
Thank you.
all
No, I
right.
didn't.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We're indebted. Did you ask Mr. Mngadi where he was employed?
No, I didn't.
And I understand from your testimony you did, however, leave that meeting with an understanding that he had a long-standing client or consultant relationship with SAA. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I also understood from your evidence a moment ago that he had particular knowledge of the aviation space. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And he also spoke to you, as I have your evidence, about the unfavorable terms that banks were lending to SAA at the time. Is that correct?
That's true. That's correct.
Did you probe how he had that knowledge?
No, I didn't.
Thank you. And now there will be a follow-up question. Did you not deem it necessary to find out how he would have that particular information which ordinarily would be confidential to SAA, the terms on which banks are lending to it?
Through you, Chair. I think it's as I've indicated before, it's the nature of our business. If someone comes to you and basically says, I'm involved with a particular client, and they give you an overview of a particular client and a deep understanding of the issues. Unfortunately, when we do business, we don't do business with a view that we're going to actually audit ourselves in the process and ask, the questions that you're asking. But it's what's supposed to be achieved at a point in time. So when he gave me the information to say, this is, because some of the information, as I said, that was actually well publicized in the news articles. So, we understand that this person says, this is my client. It's like if I tell somebody that I've got, this is my particular client, they know that, okay, fine, perhaps I've got intimate knowledge about that client. I've worked with that client at some point, understand some of the detail, at least as far as that client is concerned. So I didn't actually probe any further when he told me that this is his client. I just believed that whatever that he told me. So I didn't actually ask any further. Thank you.
And the level of information he had about the client SAA, did that raise any concerns for you that he may have been directly connected to anyone in a decision-making role at SAA?
Through you, Chair, no.
So you didn't inquire as to whether he did have personal relationships with anyone at SAA?
No, because I think, just to add on that, the level of information that he provided, obvious, I think at this point in time, was dealing directly with the office. And in that particular office, I had CAs, I had masters guys that have got, masters in investments, and basically was dealing directly with them. I was not actually involved at that level. There was actually a huge exchange of information. However, when one looks at that particular information, it's basically an analysis of, of what he said he actually understands SAA and has actually been with SAA has been with his client. So I wouldn't actually try and second guess and say, perhaps this is how did we actually get this information? Because it was just information to say, this is how things are going to go, this is the rate, this is that, this is that. So, given, what has actually transpired now, I don't think, as far as the line of business is concerned, we're actually skeptical about whoever that you deal with. Maybe it's in hindsight when all the information is presented in front of you, or a commission of these sorts that comes to you and says, actually, we've got a different understanding based on yours. Then it's only then that one would actually move back and review things differently. But at that point in time, we were not skeptical about whatever things that were happening.
Thank you, Mr. Mahlangu. Chair, I see we're close to the tea break, but I have one follow-up question in relation to this line, and then it might be appropriate.
Yeah.
Mr. Mahlangu, as I understand your evidence, Mr. Mgadi left you with a clear sense that he had a lot of experience with SAA. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, he left me with a clear sense that he understands their requirements, and that SAA has been his client.
Thank you.
Yes.
He was approaching you, though, as I understand your evidence, to bid for the transaction advisor services tender. Is that correct?
what do you mean, me as an individual or as a company?
Apologies. He had approached you on the email, but as I understand it, it was for BNP Capital
Yes,
to
for
bid for
BNP.
the tender. Is
Yes,
that correct?
That's correct.
Did you inquire of him in this meeting when he told you about SAA as his client and his previous experience in aviation, why he didn't just bid for the tender?
He did actually mention his, because I'm not sure whether we're going to talk about inline trading here.
Now
Yes.
is appropriate. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Mahlangu.
So he did mention to us an inline trading company that he said we're actually going to partner with. If you can actually go through the same pages, I think it's PDM. So let me just familiarize myself. We actually provided that as information for inline trading.
I can find that for you. If you just give me the description, then I'll know what you're referring to. It's the email in which he doesn't want his name to appear in the bid.
Yes.
Yes, you'll find that under tab 22 at page 144. Mr. Mahlangu, before we go to it, I just would like to orientate ourselves in time, if we may.
Yes.
You first get the communication from him on the 9th of February, correct?
Definitely.
Then you have a meeting on the next Thursday. And then what we're looking at page 144, I understand to be an email dated 13 February 2016. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Please tell us what the email contains.
This email, through you, Chair, this email is the email that is sent to, as I've indicated, that I hardly get involved at the bidding stage. Yes, I've got a huge team that is involved, the CAs, the masters guys that actually get involved. You know, my responsibility at the end is to actually either sign off or have an engagement with one of the senior guys to say where the issues are, how can we actually move around those issues. So this is the email that he sent to one of the guys at the office.
Can you give us the person's name?
It's Ivan Moyo at the office. And then he says, "Hi, Ivan, I recommend the following amendments, because when we actually met, just to tie up with the discussion that we're having as far as inline trading, he actually mentioned that he's got an entity called inline trading, and he wishes us to actually partner with that entity. So as time progressed, then at the office, my understanding was his details was actually in the bid document. So as time progressed, so he sends this email to one of the employees on Saturday, and then he says, "Hi, Ivan, I recommend the following amendments." And unfortunately, I was not even CC'd on this. I just got an email. Actually, I just got this through you, Chair. Given this commission, I just got this from Ivan, I think about 2 weeks ago.
About 2 weeks ago.
Yes, trying to prepare for this, to
Yes.
say, I don't understand what's happening, because I don't get involved right at the bottom when things are
Yes.
done. But
Yes.
what has actually happened?
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
And then he actually had to send me, come up with this email.
Yes.
So this email says, "Please delete the reference to Masocha Mgadi in its entirety. And its place kindly include Brendan King. Please include the following as the company profile of inline trading. Limited company profile. I cannot insert as the document you sent is a read-only document. Inline trading, which is 10, property limited expertise in funds management." So basically was giving us an overview of the inline trading, which is in fund management, automotive, and the aviation sector. Inline trading expertise and track record has been accumulated for a period of in excess of 10 years. So I just wanted to actually highlight to you, Chair, to say this is how actually we got involved with inline trading, and to what extent, and what information was exchanged during that particular course when the tender was actually put together.
Ms. Mahlangu, thank you for that. I do just want to round off on my question, which was, did you probe with him why he wasn't through his entity, now we understand it to be Inline Trading, tendering itself for this transaction advisory services tender, because he told you, as I understand the meeting by that point, about extensive experience that he and his company had.
He actually did mention, the first point through you, Chair, he said he was looking for a credible advisory firm that had massive experience in the investment space, with a track record that is necessary, with expertise, with execution, capabilities. So hence, he wanted to partner with us. On the other hand, as he mentioned in the email, he was going to bring in, the aviation expertise, which is what is required as far as this particular RFI was required. And basically, those two, if we put those two companies together, then we can we comply as far as the request for information is concerned.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of follow-up questions, but we should probably take the break and then we can deal with them after.
Yes, we'll take the tea break and we'll resume at 25 to 12. We adjourn. ready?
We are indeed, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, I know we asked Mr. Mahlangu to get us some information over the break, but my proposal is that we deal with that when it becomes pertinent again and when we look at the bid, so that we can continue with the topic we left on just before the break.
That's
with
fine.
the leave. Thank
That's
you.
fine. Okay.
Mr. Mahlangu, before the break, we had ended on your testimony that I understood to be explaining to us what Mr. Mngadi had relayed to you was his plan for this partnership between Inline Trading and BNP Capital. Is that correct? If you will just turn it on. Yes, press that button in front of you. That's perfect. Thank you. And Mr. Mahlangu, we can pick that up at page 12 of your statement. And I have it that at paragraph 5.5 on that page, you start to explain precisely what we were exploring before the break. The sentence introducing that paragraph reads, "The nature of the joint venture to be formed was on the basis of the following considerations." And at 5.5.1, you write there that Mr. Mngadi was approaching myself and BNP Capital on the basis of mine and the company's experience in the financial advisory and capital raising field. I'd like to stop there just so that we can explore that basis for the partnership, if we may. Explain to me, Mr. Mahlangu, what was your understanding of the RFI at the time? What services was SAA looking for?
Through you, Chair, they've requested an entity or a service provider that would come in and assist them as far as debt consolidation is concerned and basically doing an analysis as far as their financials are concerned.
And Ms. Mahlangu, do you understand there to be a difference between transaction advisory services and sourcing of funds or capital raising?
Yes, those are completely different.
They are completely different. We've had previous evidence clarifying that. It's useful to know that you and I are on the same page about that. So the transaction advisory services that you were bidding for had nothing to do with capital raising, did it?
Through you, Chair, yes.
But then I just want to go back to what is said at page 12, paragraph 5.5.1, because as I understand what you've recorded there, Mr. Mngadi said he wanted your and BNP Capital's experience in the financial advisory and capital raising fields. I'd like to probe that further. Capital raising wasn't relevant, though, was it?
As far as the bid was concerned, it wasn't.
Right. So that wouldn't have been a reason for the two entities to partner, that experience that your company had?
I wouldn't say that, though, because our company, by its nature, does both. Oh. Yes.
But, Mr. Mahlangu, we're exploring why Mr. Mngadi suggested the two entities should come together to bid for this tender, okay. Correct?
Correct, I understand.
So you accept at that stage capital raising was irrelevant?
Yes, I accept.
Thank you. The second explanation you give in paragraph 5.5.1 is that he was approaching you and BNP Capital, I'm picking it up in the third line of that paragraph, because of your broad-based black economic empowerment credentials. Do you see that?
Yes, yes, sorry.
Did you explore that with him and why his company didn't have those credentials?
As far as the discussion through you, Chair, with inline trading was, according to understanding, not a company that was actually fully fledged, especially in this particular space, as far as the requirements, the RFI requirements were concerned. So when you actually approached us, it was based on a question of what inline trading had at that point in time and what we had as a company. So the difference between inline trading, when we actually when we explored, what is it that was available at inline trading, was basically an entity that was not trading at that point in time, and the only thing that it had was basically the aviation experience and basic individuals with that particular experience, not necessarily that the company has actually been in that particular space for long.
Mr. Mahlangu, I want to follow up on that, but I will return to my question about BEE credentials, because I'm not certain that that answer relates to the comparative triple BEE credentials of the two entities. But let me follow up on what you have testified to. I have your evidence to be that you had understood at the time that inline trading was not fully fledged and that it had not been trading at that point in time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, could we then return to Annexure 22?
I'm sorry, just before that, did you understand whether it had ever commenced trading?
Obviously, inline trading had a what you call it, a statement, which is a SAR statement. It means it was actually operational. But as to whether activities in that particular company took place, it was a different discussion.
You didn't know, or you did know?
No, we didn't know.
You didn't know whether
Yes.
it had any trading activities?
Yes, I think through you, Chair, that information came through when later when we actually seek certain information. I think maybe that point we're going to discuss later as
No,
to
that's fine.
how we then had to actually restructure our arrangement.
No, that's fine.
Ms. Mahlangu, I would like to be very clear here because it is of some importance. At the time that you were meeting with Mr. Mngadi, in preparation for putting in the bid, we're now at about 13 February, did you understand the position to be that inline trading did not have trading experience?
Through you, Chair, hence I'm saying trading experience might be maybe in this particular case not an appropriate word, in a sense that it has a tax clearance certificate. So by virtue of it having a tax clearance certificate, it means there's been some activity in there. However, as to in the space that we add, that was actually required, which is the balance sheet optimization and debt consolidation, whether it had that experience in the advisory space, it's something. That's what I'm actually referring to here.
Because, Mr. Mahlangu, you indicate in your statement later on that the reason why you didn't submit any financials for inline trading is because it had no trading experience. Do you recall that?
Yes.
So it had no trading experience, to your knowledge?
Definitely it had. It could have a trading experience, but I don't know. I can't actually vouch for it. However, given that it's a small entity, the difference is whether it had financials is a different story, because some companies don't actually not compare to actually financials, especially when they are actually small entities or startup entities.
Well, part of this questioning arises from your own evidence. I asked you whether you knew whether it had commenced trading at some stage, and you said it had a tax number, and but you said as to whether it had any activities, you didn't know. Did I understand your evidence correctly?
That's true.
Yes, and I understood that to be a reference to trading activities of any kind, not necessarily in the sector in which BNP was involved. Was my understanding correct of what you intended to say? In other words, when you say you didn't know whether it had any activities, was I correct to think you were talking about trading activities?
Yes. Basically, what I'm referring to, Chair, is given that inline trading, when they got information at the office, I think the issue was financials. But as far as other documentation were concerned, they could actually provide. And my take, as far as that is concerned, is if a company doesn't have financials, one, it's either there are two possibilities or a couple of possibilities. But the main one is it's either there has been a trading in that particular company, meaning activities in that company. Two, or this company doesn't see a need of it having financial statements. Yes. But as far as the aspect of, as I mentioned, as the aspect of what the RFP required, that's what I was actually referring to say, I don't think they had much experience in that area.
Yes, no, I just want to make sure we are speaking we're not speaking at cross purposes. There is the question whether that entity had experience or had been involved in activities that are immediately relevant to the bid.
That's true.
Okay? That's what you may have been talking about. But also, I would imagine it would be important to first know whether what activities, what business activities it has been involved in. If it hasn't been involved in the sector that you are in, because if you find out that this is an entity, for example, that was just registered and has never done anything of any kind, that might be relevant to the question of how legitimate is it for me to get to undertake this kind of project or job with an entity which has never been involved in any business activity at all. Do you understand what I mean?
I understand,
So I was
Chair.
asking in regard to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whether in terms of your knowledge at that time covered that, or whether you say, no, I actually didn't know. You might have got to know that later.
Yes, I think, through you, Chair, I think the latter is true. At that point in time, one didn't know.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mahlangu, I'd like to probe that a bit further. You needed to submit the financials for both entities that formed the JV when you bid for the tender at SAA, did you not?
That was the initial thought at the beginning.
No, I'm asking, was it a requirement of the bid that you submit the financials of both entities in the JV who were bidding for the tender?
Yes, we're not a JV. Can I just maybe talk about it?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. I'm not sure what I'm going to be jumping around here. As we actually explored with inline trading, as far as what is it that they have, what is it that they don't have. Obviously, I think in this document, we've actually loosely used the word JV and consortium. Yes. And in our understanding is, especially in our market space, as far as these terms are concerned, sometimes it depends, because some companies come together and form a consortium, and then that consortium is basically the company that gets registered, and their interest actually gets known upfront, and then the same company that is, that it owns by these different parties.
It's a formal arrangement.
Definitely, yes. But in some instances, especially given that there was just, at the beginning, there was just a request for information. So when you engage with inline trading, the understanding at the beginning was, let's form a JV. But as my team actually went through the documentation and realized that that particular structure won't actually work with us, yes, based on some of the information that the guys didn't have. So then the conclusion that was taken was, let's form a consortium, but it's an incorporated consortium, which we've actually done it in many of these transactions. I mean, even in this bid that the one that is part of the experience, where we actually had to do an exercise for the health department, that 400 billion on academic hospital. That was arrangement. So we've got a lead which actually lead the consortium, and the consortium, in essence, what then they do is they submit minimum information to that as far as the requirements are concerned. So in this particular case, that's the route we took, given the information that was available at that point in time.
I just want to understand. You decided that a joint venture would not be suitable.
Yeah.
Yes, and you decided that BNP
Be the lead.
would be the bidder.
Yes, the lead bidder.
The lead bidder.
Yes.
And you decided what status or role did you then assign to Mr. Mngadi's entity?
Yes, I think it's actually detailed there as to when we sort of carved out the responsibilities as to who was going to do what, as far as the responsibilities are concerned.
Okay, no, that's fine. We'll come to that. The reason why I am interested in how you decided to, what role or status you gave to your relationship is because I saw that it looks like the correspondence between SAA and yourselves, and I use that in the plural, and from you yourselves to SAA and from SAA to yourselves, seemed to have been on the letterheads of BNP only, and no other entity was mentioned in any way. And that would suggest to me, that as far as SAA is concerned, BNP was the bidder and nobody else. And that you yourselves knew that there is only one bidder. You might have some arrangements between yourselves, I mean BNP and Mr. Mngadi's entity, but really if the question is asked, who is the bidder, the answer would be BNP if the truth were to be told. That's what I began to think when I looked at the correspondence.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking the question. If you decided that you were not going to form a joint venture because you had decided that would be unsuitable, what is it then was the nature of the relationship and what was the role of Mr. Mngadi's entity?
Okay, thank you, Chair, for the clarity. What I would like to do, Chair, just to put that, is to give you our experience in this particular space. Because as far as this SAA tender is concerned, that's not the only structure that has been used in that particular arrangement. I'm actually going to mention a couple of structures that we've done, which includes, for instance, we partnered. I didn't want to mention some of the audit firms here,
yes,
but we partnered with Deloitte, yes, to actually to vet the sinking fund, which was run by regiments at City of Johannesburg, and that arrangement, when you look at it, Deloitte was the lead. So as far as the letter of appointment is concerned in the correspondence, Deloitte actually was receiving all the information, even on the letterhead. However, when the submission was made, Deloitte actually did say BNP Capital it's a subcontractor. And then as far as the responsibilities of that are concerned, then it got mapped out between us and Deloitte to say this is how we're going to actually regulate this particular relationship. So even in this particular case, I mean, there are so many, even in the hospital. In the hospital, there were subcontractors. Yes, I remember.
I don't have a problem with what you are explaining and with subcontractors.
Yes.
I just want us to get it right,
okay,
as to whether we are dealing with a situation where there was a joint venture between BNP and inline trading, or whether we are dealing with a situation where the bidder was BNP, but it had some arrangement between itself and inline trading, which didn't raise inline trading to the level of being a bidder or a joint bidder itself. but simply to have an arrangement with BNP which would assist BNP to carry out or execute the bid if it got the tender.
Yes, through you, Chair. As I said at the beginning, when this thing was actually crafted out, and the thinking was we're going to work together as partners. Yeah. However, when certain information was actually requested by my office that needed to come through, and then we realized that in this particular case, because remember when you actually form a JV, it comes with a lot of responsibilities, and given the time frames that actually were available, so we didn't have any time. So hence, I think there was a chopping and changing as far as the strategy as to how do then position this entity so that at the same time we don't prejudice, the opportunity that is there by actually putting a structure which is not working. Yes.
Okay, no, that's fine. Ms. Hofmeyer, you might wish to continue. Yeah.
Mr. Mahlangu, you bid as a consortium/joint venture with Inline Trading 10 Pty Limited, did you not?
That's true.
Correct. Let's go to that page. You'll find it in your soft file, which comprises your bid submission, and you'll find it at internal page 22 of 55. Which, Chair, for the record, comes from Ms. Stimple's exhibit, DD1 at page 393.
Yes, thank you.
You'll see there, sorry, Mr. Mahlangu, let me let you get to it. You'll see there the first bold entry on that page, about a third of the way down, requires the bidder, in case of a consortium or joint venture, to provide the full details on the consortium or joint venture members if applicable. And you see that entered there is Inline Trading 10 Pty Limited.
Yes.
So it is correct you bid as a joint venture.
Okay, in the understanding that I have, yes.
Thank you. Let's then go to the financial position of Inline Trading, because that's actually where we started these questions. You said that the financials of Inline Trading were not provided because you were told that they were not trading. Is that correct?
It's the assumption I've made because the financials were not available.
Oh, I see.
Yes. So what I said was there are a couple of options as far as that aspect is concerned. Either these guys didn't see a need for them to prepare any financials, or there was no activity.
Well, as I understand your statement, you say it is because of the latter that they had no activities. You didn't inquire of them whether they didn't have financial statements because they decided not to compile them, did you?
Yeah, as I've indicated through you, Chair, that I don't deal at that level. It's the guys at the office that actually says, this company's got this and this is how we're going to move forward. So I don't deal at that level as to inquire, about the financials of the particular company that you're dealing with.
You signed the bid submission, though, did you not?
Yes, I did.
In all its respects. So did you content yourself as to the accuracy of the information contained in that bid submission before you submitted it?
Sorry, Ms. Hofmeyer, I think Council wishes to say something. Please come forward.
Apologies.
Let's hear.
Your Worship, there's a misunderstanding that is taking place.
Yes.
The witness has clarified that even though, and these are his words, even though there's loose reference to expressions of joint venture and consortium, what in actual effect took place with this bid, they used a structure where there's a primary bidder, a lead bidder, and the other party comes as a subcontractor. And in that structure, it is his evidence that how it's treated, some of the documents that would ordinarily be required if it is a joint venture in the proper sense, they are not required in relation to subcontractors. They are only required in terms of the primary bidder. But when the entity is viewed in terms of its technical expertise and ability to deliver, all the parties and the CVs of the members are looked at by the by the entity that would have issued the RFP. So it is not an arrangement where the subcontractor is completely behind the scenes. It is not behind the scenes. The entire venture, the entire team is evaluated on the strengths of the CVs of all the members. But documents like your, it would depend on each
no,
entity.
that's fine. I think
That is what is being missed.
I think make notes, and in due course, give them to Ms. Hofmeyr at some stage of areas where you think there should be some clarification, where you think there might be misunderstanding. And if having seen your notes and asked whatever questions are arising from your notes, you are still not happy that you are covered, then you can raise it with me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm indebted. It is, of course, important for the purposes of the Commission's proceedings that we receive evidence from the witnesses.
Yes,
And
yes.
it is those answers that we
Yeah.
probe with further questions.
Yeah.
Mr. Mahlangu, you were indicating your state of knowledge at the time that you submitted the bid submission about the trading activities of inline trading. Is it correct that you understood that they did not have trading activities, and that is why you did not submit financials for them?
That's incorrect. Through Chair, that's incorrect. What I said there are assumptions as far as that aspect is concerned. It's either the guys, they decide not to do financials, one, or I'm making assumptions here. Yes. But in essence, what I'm doing here is, in hindsight, where I'm sitting now, I'm making assumptions because I didn't think that I was going to be in this.
Yes, no, but
Yes.
let me just explain. My understanding of the question is that it seeks to establish what your understanding was. And your understanding would be based in part on assumptions that you made,
Yeah.
which might turn out to have been wrong. But those are the assumptions on which you based your decisions and how you interacted with them.
Yes, that's true.
So that's she's not saying what was the position, but she's saying what was your understanding of what the position was.
Hence, thank you, Chair. Hence, I said I was not actually responsible for that. However, based on information before me, when we actually engage with entities, because we engage such entities on, on a continuous basis, when an
Yeah.
entity doesn't have financials, it's either they're not in a position to, the financials are not ready, or secondly, there hasn't been any activity for them to actually necessitate any financials.
No, that's fine.
So those are the assumptions I'm making.
Yes, that's fine, but it will help us to make progress if you just answer the question as to the best of your ability. And if you are required to justify why you did or did not do any particular thing, then you justify. So, for example, at this stage, the question was simply as to what your understanding was at the particular time on a particular issue. All you say is, my understanding was A, B, C, D.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe, thanks, Chair, for guidance.
Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
what I would respond to this issue with, without skating around,
Yes.
to be honest, I didn't know. Why did
Yes,
I
no,
finish
that's the important. Sometimes you know, sometimes you don't know, and when you are the head of an organization, there will be things that you don't know, which you should know. There will be things that you don't know, which you don't need to know, and so on. But I think Ms. Hofmeyr will talk to you because her question may have a link with the fact that you signed certain documents. So
Okay.
maybe you should repeat your question.
Indeed. Thank
Yeah.
you, Chair. Mr. Mahlangu, as I understand your evidence now, it is that you did not know at the time of submitting the bid whether inline trading had financials. Is that correct?
Okay. Can I go back through, Chair? I think now the question keeps on changing now. The question, the first question that I understood was, for the mere fact that the financials were not available, did I know that there was no activity in the business? So, as I said, the reason for some of the financials not being available, I was making assumptions.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
But for the question that Ms. Hofmeyer has just asked me now is whether did I know at the time of submission whether the financials were not available? Yes. Yes, I did know the financials were not available.
Thank you. That's consistent with what you say at page 44 of your statement. We can just go there to refresh your memory. If we go to page 44 of your statement, you'll see at the bottom there at paragraph 11.3.8, you're responding to a question that the Commission had asked of you. The question is, why is it that only the financials of BNP Capital were submitted and not for inline trading? And the response, as I have it to be your response, is inline trading had no trading experience, correct?
That's true.
Thank you. Why then did the bid submission indicate that it had 10 years of experience in funds management and the aviation and automotive sectors? I'll take you to that reference for your convenience. You'll find it in Ms. Nancy's bundle, which is Exhibit DD2. And if you turn up page 272 in that bundle.
I don't have that bundle.
Ms. Nancy, I understood that.
I have this one.
Yes, but the original DD2, Chair, I'd requested was with you today. I think it might be with you on the side, might it?
Oh, nobody told me anything.
Apologies. Apologies, Chair.
And it should have been here.
Yes.
DD2?
Correct, Chair.
DD2. Am I going to need all these other ones?
At points, yes, Chair.
Oh, okay.
Apologies that that was not conveyed.
Yes, what is the page number?
272. You'll find it right towards the end of the file, Mr. Mahlangu.
Yes.
If you found it there, you'll see a heading at the top of that page 272 that reads 1.2.2, Introduction to the Company, and then it says Inline Trading 10 Proprietary Limited's expertise is in funds management, automotive and the aviation sector. Inline Trading's expertise and track record has been accumulated for a period in excess of 10 years. Do you see that?
Yes, through Chair, yes, I do.
That's inconsistent with it not having had any trading activities for the past 10 years, isn't it?
That's true.
Thank you. And Mr. Mahlangu, you've given evidence previously about the wording that Mr. Mngadi wanted inserted into the bid. Do you recall that? It was the email between himself and Mr. Moyo.
Through you, Chair, yes.
We can go there again, but you may recall this is the exact wording that Mr. Mngadi wanted inserted in the bid. Do you recall that?
Yes, I was about to take you there to say this is basically the information that we got from Inline Trading about their experience.
So did anyone in BNP Capital query how it could be that Inline Trading had 10 years of experience in these three sectors and yet have no financials because it was not trading?
Through you, Chair. Unfortunately, in our space, you find companies When someone doesn't actually have the financials now, it doesn't mean they've never had any financials. Yes, it means at that particular point in time, where financials were not ready for the submission. So that's our understanding. So it's not a question of whether these people have been trading for the past couple of years, whatever the case is, and haven't had any financials. Hence I said some people see a need for them to actually have their financials ready on a consistent basis. Some don't, for obvious reasons. But in this particular case, my assumption when I looked at it, hence I said, there was no trading here. Maybe trading was actually 1, 2, these guys were not ready just to prepare the financials, or financials were not ready, or the auditors, whatever the case is. So that was my position as far as this point is concerned.
Mr. Mahlangu, then the answer that you gave at page 44 of your statement should have been different, shouldn't it?
In light of this, yes.
It should have been, there weren't financials because they didn't have any ready at that time for submission.
Through you, Chair, I don't want to hammer on this issue, but I'm just saying at that point in time, I don't actually deal with such issues. However, in hindsight now, when I look at it, my thinking here was, if you don't have a financials, it means no trading activity. Or one, maybe I should have actually put that option in my response. Maybe that was a miss of me to say I should have actually put that possibility that one, it's either there's no trading, two, it's either the financials are not ready for that particular entity. Because I was just answering, because this thing happened in 2016, so I can't remember all the details. I was just answering to the best of my abilities.
Well, maybe let me ask this question, and maybe Ms. Hofmeyer was still going to come to it. I would have thought that if you are going to have a working relationship with somebody else that involves something like jointly tendering for business and so on together, excuse me, there would be a certain minimum homework that you would want to do on that person or that entity, just to see whether this is the type of entity you would like to be associated with, or this is the type of entity or person that you would like to be seen to be working with by other people. And of course, maybe most importantly, what value they would bring to the table as far as you are concerned. But some of the answers you have given to some of the questions seem to suggest that BNP might not have done that kind of homework, both about Mr. Mngadi and about inline trading. Am I right?
That's true, Chair. In our line of business, it depends what is it that you guys get involved in. Some audit firms, they basically run a process on us, yes, before we actually get involved with us, and for obvious reasons, and that part, for reasons that we all know, reputation, what guys have been involved in, and or do you have all these statutory requirements, blah, 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 blah. But as far as I think this particular bid was concerned, because it was a request for information, so we had the bare minimum information at our disposal that we could actually use to submit. And secondly, is as far as the due diligence on individuals and companies, hence we didn't actually have time. I think what we had was I think we have about a week or so.
Days,
yes,
yeah.
To actually put together, because to start with, we're not even interested in the tender, because we just forwarded the tender document. We didn't want to go for it. Our interest was not even there. So comes a particular sort of potential, partner says, you know what, I've got this in place. I think we can work together because I've got this expertise, I've got that. And then now we're to deal with admin issues. Because, I think what we're talking about now is admin issues, where we said, okay, fine, what is it that we have? How can we properly put the structure in place so that we respond appropriately to this particular opportunity? I think at that point in time, given the time constraints and everything, there was any time to be so to speak, quoting each other, to say, who are you, where are you from, so
Yes,
dealing with that opportunity.
so you accept that what I refer to as basic homework is something that should be done, but you say there were time constraints before you had to submit the information.
I agree,
Is
Chair.
that correct?
Yes, it's correct. Just to add on that, I think also what provided sort of not any suspicion, hence I said it's how we actually met this individual and how the introduction was done. Hence I said if it was someone that we met on the street, it was going to be a different ballgame.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mahlangu, I'd like to pick up on that question of timing. As I have your evidence, Mr. Mgadi's first approach to you was on the 9th of February. That's the email that we looked at. Is that correct?
That's correct, thank you.
And in that email, it talks about the need to be quick because the responses to the RFI had to be in, I think it was by the next Tuesday, the 16th of February. Do you recall that?
That's true.
Do you know when the actual bids had to be submitted in response to the RFP?
Sorry, through you, Chair. Now you're confusing me. Are you talking about the RFI or the RFP?
I'm now talking about the RFP because
Okay.
remember, you engage initially on the RFI, and there's a short period of time because Mr. Mgadi approaches you on the 9th, and those have to be in by the, apologies, it's Tuesday the 16th of February.
Yes.
So that's a matter of 7 days later. But the RFP process then follows, and what the documents we've been looking at are the documents that you submitted pursuant to the RFP process. They are your bid submission
Yes.
after you've submitted a response to the request for information. Are you on the same page as me?
Yes, I'm not sure how. I think I am, but I'm not following you yet.
Okay.
Maybe I will follow you.
There's a difference between the RFI and the RFP. Do you understand that?
I know that, yes.
Right. The RFI's deadline was the 16th of February 2016, correct?
Yes.
Let me assist. The RFP's deadline was the 18th of March 2016. Are you aware of that?
Yes. This process, sorry.
Are you aware of that? That the RFP required you to submit your bids by the 18th of March 2016. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I'm trying to understand the question, because now you're talking about RFI, now you're talking about the RFP.
Mr. Mahlangu, please, when Ms. Hofmeyer asks questions, don't think about where is she going or anything like that. Just look at the question and just answer it to the best of your ability. She has just said the date by when your proposals, your bid had to be delivered to SAA in response to the RFP, not the RFI. In response to the RFP, she has said that date, the closing date was 18 March 2016. And her question is, are you aware that that is the date by when your bid had to be submitted in response to the RFP? And you are either aware that that was the date or you are not aware that that was the date.
Thank you, Chair, for clarity. I think what confused me was we're moving from the RFI to the RFP. Yes, because
Yes,
we haven't submitted the RFP yet as far as this.
You remember, you asked her whether her question related to the RFI or RFP, and then she was clarifying to you. She clarified to you to say, no, I'm talking about the RFP. You had the RFI first, then you had the RFP.
Okay.
She even asked you, do you understand do you know the distinction? And you said, yes, you know it. So then she said, in effect, I'm talking about the RFP now.
Okay.
So are you aware that the 18th of March 2016 was the deadline for submitting the bid in response to the RFP?
I can't say that because I can't remember now the details.
You can't
Yes.
remember, that's fine.
Let me take you to it. You'll find it in your soft file in front of you, which contains the BNP bid. You'll recall that's the one we've created for today's purposes. And if you go to the internal numbering on that, page 10 of 55, which, Chair, for the record, is in Ms. Stimple's bundle, which is Exhibit DD1 at page 381.
I've got it.
Thank you. Ms. Mahlangu, you'll see there, it's the third line down, it says closing date or time, 18 March 2016. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Are you satisfied that that was the closing date then for bid submissions in response to the RFP?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Ms. Mahlangu, let me explain why that line of questioning is relevant, because it's a follow-on from the Chair's question earlier. The Chair's question was, what level of interrogation did you engage upon before you entered into this joint venture with inline trading? And I understood your answer to be, well, there was little time in which we could do extensive checking. And that is why I needed to put to you that it is certainly the case that there was a short period of time for responses to the RFI, but the actual bid submission occurred a full month later. And so in fairness to you, I'd like to ask whether it wasn't available to you in that month between the 16th of February 2016 and the 18th of March 2016 to get more information about inline trading before you submitted your bid.
And thank you, Chair. Now I understand where the confusion comes from. As far as the RFI was, it's concerned, the RFI had to be submitted as a matter of agency, yes, and already inline trading was part of that process, the detail, and during that period, obviously the SAA officials had to actually go through a particular process, and then when that process was done, it's only then that they've issued to companies an RFP, yes. I understand what Ms. Hofmeyr is asking me, but the difficult part is that we've already started this journey with inline trading right at the beginning from the RFI stage. So we're not dealing with inline trading with a suspicious view that there's something untoward.
May I stop you there, Mr. Mahlangu? Take your time and just listen to the question carefully, okay? The only question that Ms. Hofmeyr has asked you now is whether a month, that is from 16 Feb to 18 March, was not enough for you to obtain whatever information you might have wished to obtain about inline trading. So your answer should be yes, it was enough, or no, it was not enough. And if you are then asked a follow-up question, then you can deal with that. Or you can explain if there's a need for explain. But let's first get the answer to whether that was not enough time from 16 February to 18 March to get whatever information you may have wished to get about inline trading.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think between that time and the 18 March, BNP Capital had we were not actually in a position, we didn't actually set forth to look for any other information from inline trading because it was just a follow-on on the...
Yes, but no, you are not answering the question again, at least as formulated by me. If you wanted to get more information on inline trading between 16 February and 18 March, would you accept that that would have been enough time, or do you say that that would not have been enough time for you to try and get more information about inline trading?
Through you, Chair, now I'm lost. Maybe you can assist me again.
Yes, well, I'm trying to assist, but maybe,
Yes.
maybe I'm confusing you.
Yes, I'm confused because remember at the beginning when we actually entered, when we had an arrangement.
No, I think let's forget the beginning.
Yeah, no, okay.
No, let's forget the
Yes.
beginning. We are going to keep on going back
The-
for too long.
Yes.
Just wait, just wait. Is it correct that you said the time you had to obtain information about or from inline trading before submitting the response to the RFI was too short?
True.
You
Chair.
said that?
Definitely.
Yes, okay. That means you didn't have enough time to try and get whatever information you may have wanted to get about inline trading. Is that correct? That's the significance of your answer, that the time was short.
Yes, through Chair, if you remember what led to that question, is you've asked me, you said to me, in most instances, before a business enters into a partnership with another business, you guys do a sort of a due diligence
Yeah.
on each other.
Yes.
And then my response was, in this particular case, one, we didn't have time. Yes. Two, some companies, I'll give you an example. Before we enter into any arrangement with that company, they've already done a due diligence in advance. So there's a
Yes.
time, yes.
Yes, you did
besides,
say that, yeah.
Yes, besides doing a due diligence in advance,
Yes.
we've already worked with some of these companies. We might be sitting on different side of the tables,
Yes, you
so they
did
know
that.
that we exist.
You did say
Yes,
that, yes.
but in this particular case, firstly, we didn't actually, to respond to your question, we didn't have time for that. Actually, it didn't even hit us at that point in time, given with the rate things were moving, to say,
Yeah.
wait, I think let's check out who you are. They've actually, perhaps they've done that to us, because, they had to,
Yes.
yes, but
Yes.
we didn't do that to
Yes,
them.
but hang on, Mr. Mahlangu, if we are going to spend so much time on one question, we won't finish today, we won't finish tomorrow, okay? Let's try again, okay? You have repeated your evidence that at least one of the reasons why you didn't do any homework on inline trading before you submitted your response to the RFI was that the time was limited. Is that right? You have repeated that. That's one of the reasons, at least. Am I right? Okay.
Yes.
Is one of the reasons why you did not do what you call due diligence on inline trading before responding to the RFI, was one of the reasons that the time available to you to do that was short?
Yes, Chair, but can I qualify it?
Oh, yeah, what's the qualification?
The question is, I think we're making an assumption here, and that assumption is, can I finish, Chair, just 1 second?
Okay,
Yes.
finish, yes.
That assumption is, when we enter with any business, we do a due diligence, and that's an assumption we're making, and we don't. I don't think all these companies do that, otherwise we won't move forward. So that's an assumption we're making. So now I'm put in a corner where I'm supposed to actually respond to say, I was supposed to have made a due diligence, but there's question of time, but perhaps maybe I had more time. Why didn't I do it?
Okay, all right, let's do this. I think I did ask you the question after you had responded to this. I think I did ask you the question whether you agreed that that homework should have been done, but that there was no time. I may have misunderstood your answer, but I thought you accepted that that kind of what I called homework should have been done. That's not what you said. I misunderstood.
What basically I meant is invariably people will actually do that. We do
Yeah.
it with this.
Yeah, but
it's-
would BNP do that on somebody that
Yeah.
wants to work with them as a joint venture?
Definitely, but not, we don't actually do that on all our potential sort of partners.
But normally you would do that, but
Definitely.
sometimes you don't.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, all right. Now, are you able to tell us when you do it and when you don't? Is there a particular criterion that you use to say, well, we won't do it if the entity is this type of entity or meets these kinds of requirements? How do you decide, yes, we must do it here, no, we mustn't do it here?
Through you, Chair, it actually usually through the business requirements at that point in time. So whatever opportunity that is there, if for instance we get opportunities on a continuous basis where we get people to phoning us and say, I'm sorry and so, I need advice on this particular issue, I've come from this particular company, then you are able to sit back and say, who are these guys? Who do they come from? I mean, if they came through just calling us to say, no, so-and-so gave me your number and, and they said I must actually talk to you, blah, blah, blah. So in essence, if we had the time, then we'll look at this company, engage further if there's no opportunity. If, for instance, there's no opportunity, but the opportunity, it's going to be concluded far down the line. Then we have the time to sit down and say, and engage with those people further. But in some instances, there's an opportunity and certain individuals, and actually you move, given the time constraints and everything else, you move. But it's not like it's a prerequisite to say before we engage with anyone, we have to actually make sure that we understand who you are, where you come from, because we all protect ourselves separately, differently.
So would it be correct then to say what you are saying is that normally you do that homework,
Yes, Chair,
but sometimes you don't,
that's true.
and that a lot depends, whether you do it or not, a lot depends on the circumstances at the time.
Definitely,
Is that right?
definitely.
And those circumstances would largely be whether there is enough time to do the homework and other factors maybe.
I agree with you,
But
Chair,
that would be one of the factors.
definitely.
Yes. Now, in the case of inline trading, before the submission of your response to the RFI, my understanding was earlier on that you were saying because of time constraints, at least as one of the reasons, maybe there may be others, you didn't do that homework.
No, we didn't.
Yes, but that part of the reason why you didn't was that there was little time to do it before you had to deliver the response to SAA. Is that right?
Yes, there was, through you, Chair, there was little time to actually to be in courtship with inline trading, because
Yes.
most of the guys, we're in courtship, we know them, and then
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Okay, all right. Was the other reason why you didn't do that homework about inline trading before submitting your response to the RFI, was one of the reasons that Mr. Mngadi had been referred to you by somebody that you knew quite well and knew as credible?
That's one of the reasons.
That's what.
Yes.
So we have got at least two reasons why you didn't do it. One, time constraints. Two, the fact that Mr. Mngadi had been referred to you by somebody that you trusted.
Definitely.
right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, going back to Ms. Hofmeyer's question, let's confine ourselves for now only to the question of whether there was enough time between the 16th of February and the 18th of March 2016 to do that homework. Whether there may be other reasons why you might decide not to do it, we can deal with that. Was a month enough time to do whatever homework you might have wished to do on inline trading?
Through you, Chair, I think the time was sufficient. I mean, a month is a sufficient time. However, we didn't set forth at the beginning that we're going to do that.
Yes, no, that's fine. So is my understanding correct that this was a case where you decided that you were not going to do that homework in regard to inline trading? Is my understanding of what you are saying correct? My understanding is that you are saying, or you may be saying, that in the case of inline trading, you decided that you were not going to do the homework we are talking about.
Through you, Chair, it's not like we decided.
Yes.
Yes, it's not like we consciously sat down and said,
Yes.
as far as this company is concerned, we are actually not going to do this.
Yes. You didn't make any specific decision.
No, it was, as I said, Chair, it was based on what was available. I mean, even in his email, Mr. Mngadi will tell you time is of essence. So when we actually got there, we're just running to try and
Yes.
compete. Yes, there was no question of, okay, first, before we run, by the way, who you are, let's understand where you come from, because we didn't actually have that luxury of time.
Okay, all right. So I think we have, Ms. Hofmeyer, I've taken over your question,
Not at all.
but
Not at all.
I think that what you are saying is, one, you didn't do any homework about inline trading, both before you submitted your response to the RFI and before you submitted the bid in response to the RFP. Is that correct? You did not, as a matter
Yes.
of fact, you did not do it.
That's
Yes.
true, Chair.
And you did not make a specific decision not to do it. It just didn't happen.
That's true, Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Mahlangu, I'd just like to follow up on something you said in your answer to the chair's questions. I think you said something about you knew the guys, or you were in courtship. I'm not sure I got the word correctly, in relation to inline trading. Did I misunderstand your evidence? I thought you gave that as a reason for why you didn't do homework.
Through you, Chair, yes, there's a misunderstanding. Yes.
What did you say about...
I said there was not enough time to be in courtship.
Right, I understand. Not enough time. Thank you. Mr. Mahlangu, you were the person who signed at the various points we've gone to in the bid submission
That's
for
true.
BNP Capital. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you satisfy yourself as to the correctness of the facts that were presented in that bid submission before you signed in those places and before you submitted the bid?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Just to pick up the point that your legal representative took up about a subcontractor role between BNP Capital and inline trading, just as a matter of fact, is your reading of your bid submission the same as mine, in that at no point in that bid submission is inline trading ever referred to as a subcontractor?
Are you asking whether is it yes or no? Through you, Chair.
Yes, sometimes two negatives is
Yeah.
unhelpful. Is there anywhere in the bid submission where inline trading is referred to as a subcontractor?
I don't remember.
Okay. Take it for now, Chair, if it becomes contentious. I'm sure my learned friend will direct me to it. As I read the bid submission, there's no indication ever that it is a subcontractor. I've taken you to the page, we looked at it just now, where it is clearly referenced as either your consortium or your JV partner. You recall that?
Yes, through you, Chair. People can be in a consortium, but in that consortium, there can be subcontractors. But I concur with Ms. Hofmeyer that there was no point where inline trading was actually mentioned as subcontract.
Thank you. And are you aware that the bid referred to it as BNP's partner at various points?
Yes.
Thank you. Then I don't need to take you to that page, but you certainly defined them as your partner, and you referred to both of yourselves as the parties who were submitting the bid. But that's not contentious, so we don't need to go there. Thank you. Mr. Mahlangu, we were at the point in your testimony where we were trying to understand why Inline Trading wanted to partner with you to make this bid submission. You'll recall that. And the question that I was actually asking, if we go back to page 12 of your statement, you'll recall we were at paragraph 5.5.1 on that page, and I was breaking it up because it contains important information about what Mr. Mngadi said to you, as I understand your evidence, for justifying the partnership. And the one we were concerned about was your broad-based black economic empowerment credentials. And I asked you why Mr. Mngadi needed BNP for that purpose. And the question followed from that, did Inline Trading not have those credentials? What is your answer to that?
Inland Trading did have.
It did have?
Yes.
Thank you. So that wouldn't have been a reason for them needing to partner with you, correct?
Some of the reasons, yes, correct.
Thank you. So we've already eliminated that they needed you for capital raising experience because that was not part of the tender. We've eliminated that they needed you for broad-based black economic empowerment credentials. And then the third on that page is the credibility of your firm and competency and proven track record to execute similar transactions or projects as the then intended project, correct?
That's true.
Did you inquire?
I'm sorry, Ms.
Apologies.
Mayor, I just want to mention this. Earlier on, you referred Mr. Mahlangu to, I don't remember the page, but I think it was the proposal that they submitted to
Yes.
SAA. And somewhere at the top of the page to which you referred us, there was a reference to, I think, Inline Trading having had something like a certain experience
Yes.
of over 10 years
Yes,
or something like
yes,
that.
yes.
I don't know whether you were going to deal with that later, but I thought there was something that still needed to be tied
Yes,
up there.
indeed.
So I'm just saying, if it's in your plan,
Yes,
it's fine.
indeed. Chair, it actually comes in right now
Okay.
because it's part of this third justification,
Yes,
right?
yes.
The third justification, as I understand it, and Mr. Mahlangu, in fairness to you, the reason why these questions are being asked is because, as I understand your engagement with Mr. Mngadi on that 9th of February, he presented to you as though he had a wealth of experience about SAA. Is that correct?
He had wealth. I'm not sure what that.
Fine, let's
he
confine
had
it.
experience.
Experience.
Let's say
Yeah,
a lot of experience.
Yes.
Is that good enough?
That's good.
Thank
enough.
you.
Yeah, okay.
SAA was his client.
Yes.
So what I'm probing is why then does Mr. Mngadi and his company Inline Trading need BNP Capital? That is where this line of questioning is going.
Okay.
And the third that you've offered is because your entity, I'm at page 12, had competency and a proven track record to execute similar transactions. Right, you see that?
Yes.
And Chair, that is, in fact, with respect, precisely where this point comes in, because according to the information that Mr. Mngadi had given your colleague, Mr. Moyo, Inline Trading had that very experience. Do you remember that page that we went to? It's the page that copy and pasted what Mr. Mngadi had said in that email on the 13th of February. Do you recall that?
Yes, I recall, but it doesn't have that similar experience to us.
Take us through that. Let's just remember what was said. If you go to, it's page 144 of your statement under tab 22. That is the email that we've looked at previously, where Mr. Mngadi tells Mr. Moyo what description he proposes be included in the proposal. And at the bottom there, in quotations, is the language that we later saw in the proposal that the chair was referring to. Inline Trading 10 Proprietary Limited's experience is in funds management, automotive, and the aviation sector, Inline Trading's expertise and track record has been accumulated for a period in excess of 10 years. Are you saying that is not the credentials and experience and track record you would bring?
Through you, Chair, the experience that has been actually highlighted in that email were not the experience that were required by the RFP.
So experience in the aviation sector was not relevant to the RFP?
Aviation sector, it was relevant, yes, but it was not the crux of it. It was just one of those.
Thank you. We'll follow that up later in terms of the roles that each of you were to play in performing the work. But for now, there was also an indication in your meeting, as I have your statement, what inline trading was going to bring to the JV. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
If we go to page 13 for that, you'll pick it up at paragraph 5.6.
Yes.
You see there you begin with, on the other hand, Mr. Mgadi offered to be involved through his company, namely Inline Trading, on the basis that inline trading, and then you set out the series of things, as I read your statement, that inline trading was going to bring to the JV. Is that a fair reading of that paragraph?
It is.
Thank you. So the first is that it had knowledge of SAA and its financial needs. Is that correct?
That's true.
And had you established whether it had contracted before with SAA?
No. Through you, Chair.
But certainly you understood Mr. Mgadi had been a consultant to SAA, is that right?
Yes, through the information, yes.
Yes.
Through our discussion.
No, that's what he said, absolutely. It, at 5.6.2, had knowledge of the requirements of the RFI and would therefore provide input in the proposal for transaction advisory work as required by SAA. Is that what he conveyed to you at that meeting?
Yes.
And then the one I'd like to just spend a bit of time on at 5.6.3, Inline Trading would be the primary contact person between the consortium and SAA. Do you see that?
Yes, yes, Chair, I do.
And it goes on to say this meant that Inline Trading would handle all the necessary communication with SAA on behalf of the consortium. Is that what was conveyed to you at that meeting with Mr. Mgadi?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, Mr. Mahlangu, Inline Trading didn't ever once communicate with SAA, did it?
At least formally.
Oh, yes, formally, yes. They couldn't have done so because they were part of the team.
Because they were?
Part of the team. Okay, what I'm understanding is, the question is, Inline Trading has never actually had any communication with SAA. Yes. As Inline Trading as a company on its own, what I'm saying is they were part of the team.
Yeah.
Yes, but then what did it mean when Mr. Mgadi said to you, Inline Trading will handle all the necessary communication with SAA?
What was your understanding of that statement from Mr. Mgadi? That's the question.
My understanding was, given that they understand all the client, he's closer to the client, understand their needs, so he's actually well positioned to actually talk to the client, understand what the client needs, and come and feedback to us. And what basically he asked to do is it's not in any way different from our day-to-day business, where when we actually enter into this kind of arrangement, we actually carve out responsibilities. And one of the responsibilities, some of the responsibilities would be actually a person that who's closer to the client, to understand the client's needs, and actually communicate back to the team. And this is the role that actually Mr. Mgadi played in this assignment.
Was your understanding that this would relate to if, for the period after the bid would have been given to you if you were successful, after the tender would have been given to you if you were successful. That's the communication period that this was talking about.
Yes, that's true, sir.
And after the bid was submitted, was it going to be responsible for all the communication?
Yes, I think we can, yes, through you, Chair, yes. I mean, it's evident in the emails that followed, you know, after the submission of that particular bid.
And Mr. Mngadi, I'll come back to that in a moment, but if you go to page 16 of your statement, you are summarizing there the dominant role at the bottom of the page, paragraph 5.12, that Mr. Mngadi assumed in relation to the preparation of the bid and other later work. At paragraph 5.12, you say Mr. Mngadi assumed a dominant role in respect of the following. The first is preparing the sourcing of funds proposal, and over the page, drafting relevant correspondence, which I would in most instances sign off under the BNP Capital logo or letterhead and send off to client. Could we stop there for a moment? Did you look at those letters carefully before you sent them off?
Through you, Chair. Yes, I think not necessarily careful, because I had a team, about 3 individuals that were actually responsible for this. So Mr. Mngadi was constantly communicating with them. So as and when they are satisfied with the content of it, then they will actually send it to me, just, you know, to me to forward it. And in some instances I'll look at it, in some instances I would say, and question, but in most instances I would actually look at it, given the risk and reward, you know, of the proposal.
So who would check the factual accuracy of what was being stated in those letters?
The team at the office.
The team within BNP?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is the position that you are saying that sometimes you would read what's put before you for signing, but sometimes you would ask the person bringing it, or the team or a member of the team, whether everything was in order, and if they assured you that everything was in order with the letter or email, then you would sign off?
That's true, sir. So in most instances, my electronic signature was used, actually, in all of this communication. Yes.
Yes.
So they would actually send it to me complete.
Yes.
So I'll go through it if there are any, or if there's a need, you know, depending on the discussions with them, they would just say, you know, we've gone through this, we're happy.
Okay.
Apologies, Chair, just one point of clarification there. You made reference to an electronic signature. Did you, however, satisfy yourself about the letters before your electronic signature was applied to the letters?
Yes, I think based on what I've just
Thank you.
mentioned to the Chair. Thank you.
Just wanted to be clear. So if there were factual...
Well, I just want to make sure there's no misunderstanding. I understood you to say when the letters were brought to you for approval,
Yes, Chair.
the electronic signature was already there.
Yes.
But the question that you have been asked is whether you would check the information before your electronic signature was put on it. And you said true. You said yes. So I just wanted to make sure there's no misunderstanding.
The template that was used already had my electronic signature. So
Yes.
that information will come through me with an electronic signature.
Oh, okay.
But then you would check its accuracy and on occasions rely on your team. Is that your evidence?
That's true.
Thank you. So if there were factual inaccuracies in those letters that came from BNP to other parties, BNP would be responsible for those, correct?
The consortium would be responsible for it.
No, but I understand your evidence to be there was a team within BNP who would check the facts that were set out in those letters, correct?
Yeah, that's true.
So if those facts are shown to be false, then it's the BNP team that would be responsible for not having got the facts correct.
Yes, that's true.
Thank you.
I understand.
The other point I want to pick up on page 17, we were at paragraph 5.12, and it's sub-paragraphs there, is that at 5.12.4, you indicate one of the other roles of Mr. Mngadi was to liaise directly with SAA and other parties. Do you see that?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Mahlangu, I think you were here for some of the evidence of Ms. Nancy. She indicated in her evidence that she's never met you. Is that correct?
That's true.
So at no point of your engagements with SAA did you physically meet Ms. Nancy?
No, I haven't met her.
Did you meet anyone else at SAA?
No, I haven't met her. I haven't met anybody at SAA.
And you corresponded on occasion with people at SAA, is that correct?
That's true.
Who was meeting with SAA then, from your side?
It's Mr. Mngadi.
Right. And as I understand the evidence, Mr. Mngadi pitched this JV to you because inline trading was going to play that role of liaising with and communicating with SAA. Is that correct?
That's true.
Then, Mr. Mngadi, I need to put to you what is remarkable about all the papers in this case. It's that at no point is inline trading in any formal way interacting with SAA. Is that something you were aware of at the time?
Through you, Chair, Mr. Mahlangu.
Apologies. Apologies. I do that.
Mr. Mahlangu, she did the same with another witness. It's
Sorry.
not intentional. So
I do apologize.
So it's just that she has to deal with different names, and
Yes.
I think it happens to the best of us.
Apologies.
Yes.
Okay. To respond to that, in our understanding, inline trading was represented by Mr. Mngadi. So the issue that, what I'm not understanding now is, it's actually your question, because as far
Yes.
as in our world,
Okay, maybe I also thought there might be something that might cause confusion. You actually said, Ms. Hofmeyer, what was strange was that at no stage was inline trading in contact and communication with SAA. Based on what you had said, I expected you, or maybe no, now I think I understand. Okay, no, all right. I think the question is, in terms of what you had arranged with inline trading, it was that your understanding was that inline trading would be in communication, would handle the communication part with SAA. And I think Ms. Hofmeyer was saying, and she will correct me if I misunderstood her question, what is strange is that there was no formal communication that ever came from inline trading to SAA. Ms. Hofmeyer, am I right?
Indeed.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
All the formal communication came from BNP, not inline trading. Or most of it. I said all, but maybe it's most.
is through you, Chair. Now I'm supposed to respond, or is it just an observation? Yeah. No, I thought maybe she was just passing an observation to say this is. Oh, okay.
No, indeed, Chair.
Maybe she was.
I don't.
Well, maybe it's been a long morning.
It has been a long morning, but I don't take it to be my role to make observations. I am interested in your comment, Mr. Mahlangu, in relation to what, when you look at these papers, can be observed. So let me be clear about the question. I understood Mr. Mngadi to say to you when you met on the 9th of February that what inline trading was going to bring to this JV was it was going to be the entity responsible for all communication with SAA. Is that correct?
That's true.
And is it correct that there is not a single letter on a letterhead of inline trading that you are aware of that ever went to SAA?
Through you, Chair, it couldn't have been in that particular fashion because of the arrangement.
Okay,
Yes,
now let's start with, is it true that you are not aware that there was any letter from Inline Trading that went to SAA? And if the answer is yes, I'm not aware, then we can take it, we can move forward. So she's just asking you at this
yes,
stage.
yes, I'm not aware.
Okay, all right.
And Mr. Mahlangu, I understand you to want to explain why that was the case. Why is there no communication from Inline Trading to SAA?
It's because of the arrangement. If you look at even the letter of appointment, it's BNP Capital that was appointed, and we work with Inline Trading. So all the communication that needed to be done was supposed to be done through the letterhead of BNP Capital for consistency, as actually as the standards with all other contracts. If there's a contract, if a particular individual, for instance, even the one that I've mentioned with Deloitte would actually send all the communication to the client. If we've got opinions, we'd actually feed to their opinions, send them whatever our inputs are, and then they would actually do that communication. So we wouldn't send clients different emails. Otherwise, there would be a confusion.
Mr. Mahlangu, at the time that you bid for this tender, were you aware that Mr. Mngadi was employed at Nedbank?
No, I wasn't aware. No, I wasn't aware.
When did you learn that he was employed at Nedbank, if at all?
When there was a paper, a media, which actually spoke about it, it's only then that one became aware.
Were you aware that Nedbank was bidding for this tender at the time that BNP bid?
At the time BNP bid, no, I wasn't aware, but I got aware of it when it was in the media.
Thank you. Chair, I see we've just passed the lunch break, scheduled time. If it's appropriate, we can take the break now.
Yes, just before we do that, I just want to go back to this question of communication. You have said that from a certain time, I think maybe that's from the date of appointment, BNP became the party that would communicate with SAA, because otherwise there would be confusion if BNP would communicate with SAA and Inline Trading would also do the same. Is that correct? Is my understanding correct of what you said?
The formal correspondence through which, yes. The formal correspondence.
Formal correspondence.
Yes, would be done through BNP
Yes.
Capital.
Yes.
Yes, but Inline Trading would actually meet with the client, understand their needs, and come and feedback to us, and then would actually work on that and feedback to the client.
Are you saying that before the letter of appointment, the arrangement was that Inline Trading would handle all communication, which would include formal communication and informal communication, but that after the letter of appointment, this changed? The formal communication would be handled by BNP, but Inline would have informal communication with SAA?
Through you, Chair, I think formal communication and informal, as far as, because what we wanted to do was to maintain consistency, yes. So meaning formal communication is, maybe that is formal, where you go and meet the client. I would assume that is formal as well. But as far as what actually gets put on a letterhead and then it's sent to client, given that the client only knows, communicates with us formally as far as issues are concerned. So that's how we actually did it.
Okay, maybe we'll talk about it further after lunch. Let's take the lunch break. We will resume at 2:10. We adjourn.
All rise.